Hello, 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 friends. Nicholas here with DIVO TED Talks, Devoted Talks, where we take ancient wisdom and practices through a modern lens and experience to help you and those you love in suffering in your personal and greater worlds alike. And I am struggling because I'm looking at my computer screen and there's a discoloration. So, did you know that if any type of oil spills on the casing of your MacBook Pro, I didn't research any other computers, so this might happen for lots of computers, but I just happened to look up mine because, it was the one that it happened to, that the oil can leach through the sealing case and then start to migrate through your screen, causing a discoloration as the light is refracted differently because of the oil. Yep, that happened. And it looks fine-ish, right? But like as I'm looking at my eyes right now, there's this like purple streak across my face. It looks like a birthmark or something, or an eclipse over my face. Anyway, but it was funny the way it happened, but I wanted to talk about it because it highlighted something that I have noticed about myself recently, and something even a friend noticed recently. And my friend, views me a little bit differently because she sees me sporadically. Like she lives in Florida now, but she comes back pretty regularly. But it's been a few months since I've seen her. And she's like, wow, you're so grounded. And I can just feel and see the difference in you. And I wasn't trying to be that. It just is kind of who I am these days. And I was happy to hear that. But then what happened was I opened a can of or a jar of peanut butter. It was natural peanut butter and it was separated. And I dropped something and I leaned forward and all of a sudden I realized that I could smell peanut butter and I realized that some of the oil had spilled onto my shorts in my bag, not noticing that it had hit my computer on the side. So I didn't open it for a day or two. And then when I did, I was like, oh, that's a weird purple streak. And I didn't know what it was actually. And so, except there was some, oil on the outside of the computer, and I was like, oh crap! And it was leaching out after that. So I put it back in the bag, and then more drained out. So I put paper towel in there, and there was a good bit in there. And I'm lucky that it's a non-reactive substance as far as electricity, and so I just have this purple streak across my screen, which is not a big deal. But it also was like, ooh, do I want to get a new computer? But anyway, the point of the story was that I could tell a difference because I didn't go, oh my God, what is wrong? Computer. Ah. And yeah, it's not my favorite look for the computer screen, but it's not the end of the world. And it still functions and it still does what it's supposed to do. And while I might still get a new computer, like for the studio, or donate this one to the studio and keep the new one for myself, there's options and there's things that can be done. And it didn't feel like, oh my God, that's $2,000 down the drain. It felt like, oh, shit happens. And I just happened to be standing there with the peanut butter, and it's not like I would have thought, oh my God, the peanut butter is going to spill. It just happened. And so that reaction has highlighted for me that, yeah, I'm seeing and feeling things differently. It doesn't feel like life is attacking me or threatening me or coming at me sideways. I'm just rather able to show up for it fully. And then, you know, whatever happens, happens, and I'm okay with it, right? And that's not true for everything in my life right now. I feel very stressed out still, but I'm getting better. Like I'm moving through these emotions, I'm moving through the anxiety and dis not misalignment, right? I'm not dissatisfied, but I'm also like, gosh, I'm exhausted, right? It's kind of both and. Regardless though, evolution is happening. I'm changing and transforming and I am starting to be more peaceful and calm. And it's not that you don't have anger, it's that your relationship to the things that happen is just different. And that's what yoga and Ayurveda is trying to teach us, right? Like we have an idea of what a yogi is, but the actual manifestation of a yogi is as unique as the person that is practicing the yoga, which looks different depending on the person because what they need to be in relationship with self is not what other people need, right? All of us have lived unique lives and we have unique genetics and likes and dislikes and propensities. And so that influences what we're drawn to or where we're at in life. So that inherently dictates what we're exposed to or in what time frame we're exposed to things. And so yoga has been commodified. And so people have ideas based on what interaction they've had with it through Instagram or through the TV or through yoga. I mean, through YouTube or through other channels in their lives. And then it's not really until you actually do it, and you do it with a practitioner who isn't trying to sell you something, but a practitioner who's trying to sell you, that you start to be like, oh, that's what it is. Like when you take my yoga classes, I've had people comment, you give us a lot of options and you leave it open-ended for us to decide. And I'm like, yeah, it should be like that, right? I want to teach you how to notice for yourself what you need, because ultimately it is you who feels your body, you who experiences your body, and thus you who has to live with it furthermore. And so what I suggest may not be exactly what you need, but I can also guide you through what I'm thinking will be best. And then collaboratively, we do it together, right? The class is the space that is being held. And then you get to individualize it based on what you're feeling and sensing in the moment as you practice. And the more you practice, the more you'll have in your library or your repertoire to choose from, and or you'll have a greater knowledge base, so you'll know how to tweak it and work with it. I was giving cues today that I was like, oh yeah, that's a good one to remember, even for myself. And honestly, it's things that I do, but I don't think about. As an instructor in life, like in these channels, as well as in yoga and fitness, I'm basically talking with people about either what I have seen or what I personally have experienced, or both, and how they integrate. And I take that to help them see what application that has in their life or not, because sometimes it doesn't have an application. And I've been thinking about the fact that I had a lot of people come through the studio last week, and then I haven't heard word one from them. And I've had other people who've been signing up for classes but then don't show up, and I have to keep bringing myself back to that central idea that I am doing the work that feels right, and that those who are a match for the work that I'm doing will show up when they're supposed to. And also, this is what is going to help me grow and become better. These experiences of them coming and not staying or whatever. And either it's feedback or maybe it's completely different, right? Maybe they had a bunch of life stuff, and even though they had a week long um, package, it just didn't work out. It could be all the things. And just because they're not texting me back doesn't mean anything, right? As humans, we often try to fill in the gap with limited information. And so I try to remind myself that I don't know anything outside of they didn't text me back or they haven't come back. And that inherently is all that I know. And so I either accept that as is without labeling it, or I could continue to do that and either suffer or write people off when it has nothing to do with anything but life turning in the way that it does. How do we know life is turning in the way that it does? Well, we keep practicing and taking that knowledge that we gain and integrate in class, right? So first at DIVO, we detoxify. Second, we integrate new knowledge. Third, we vitalize. That's living it, right? You're going out and living life, and you're like, oh, that's what he was talking about. Oh, there's that thing that he brought up, right? One of the coolest things I've had lately is one of my clients repeating back my words from classes, like a phrase that I had come up with, and it moves people a lot, but it just felt like the most natural thing to say. And it took me a couple of years to develop it. Like I would say things and it would work, and I would add and I would subtract on the fly, and then eventually it became cohesive as to what it is. And so the lessons that my client has been reflecting back to me come from that closing, and it's beautiful to hear the way that it impacts another life and another soul in their journey. And so yoga and Ayurveda are calling us to practice regularly so that we become familiar and in relationship with ourselves, so that we know what's happening, right? If you don't spend any time with yourself, how are you going to get a clue about what's going on with you? You either rely on external clues, which you're still interpreting, or you rely on somebody else to tell you what you are. I'll never tell anybody what they are. I can tell people how they're making me feel, and I can tell people, the sense that I'm getting from it, but I don't know unless I ask them, and they might not even know. And so even if they did respond to me, it might not actually be truthful because they're interpreting it based on my question in that moment right then, which could be different if phrased differently in questioning them, or if it happened at a different time. And you know what? All of it is great. All of it is fine. So we practice regularly so we become an intimate relationship with ourselves, so we're better able to understand our lives through familiarity and patterns and just a desire to know more, right? When people say they love themselves, I always question it because I'm like, do you love yourself based on what you think love is, or a feeling that you have about yourself, or about that deep intimacy that you have shared with yourself since the day you were born, even though you may not remember that part so well, but that continuity that you come to know in all of your life's experiences and iterations. It is through that that I personally have learned to be well and be free, which is why I try to continually phrase it in different ways and take life from different angles so that you can break it down into something that helps you as well be well and be free.